Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a service provider is experiencing inefficiencies in its network provisioning workflows. To address this, which of the following approaches would best align with optimizing processes while ensuring regulatory compliance and service integrity? Option A. Automate the most time-consuming manual tasks identified through anecdotal feedback from operations staff, without formal process mapping or performance measurement. Option B. Immediately implement the latest vendor-provided automation suite for network provisioning, relying on the vendor's claims of efficiency improvements and industry adoption. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current provisioning workflows to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for automation, establish baseline performance metrics, and then pilot automated solutions in a controlled environment before full-scale deployment. Option D. Prioritize the automation of tasks that offer the most significant immediate cost savings, even if it means bypassing some validation steps or potentially impacting less critical service functions. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive analysis of current provisioning workflows to identify specific bottlenecks and areas for automation, establish baseline performance metrics, and then pilot automated solutions in a controlled environment before full-scale deployment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the drive for efficiency through process optimization with the imperative to maintain service integrity and compliance. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing changes that yield tangible improvement without introducing new risks or violating established operational procedures and regulatory mandates. This requires a nuanced understanding of both automation technologies and the operational context within which they are deployed. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven methodology that prioritizes risk assessment and validation by first establishing baseline performance metrics, then identifying specific bottlenecks through detailed process mapping, and finally implementing and rigorously testing automated solutions in a controlled environment before full deployment. Service providers can ensure that optimization efforts are effective and do not compromise service quality or regulatory adherence. This aligns with best practices in IT service management and operational risk management, emphasizing a phased and validated approach to change. The focus on measurable outcomes and controlled implementation directly supports the goals of process optimization while mitigating potential disruptions. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing automation without a clear understanding of current processes or performance metrics is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses essential due diligence, potentially leading to the automation of inefficient or non-compliant workflows, thereby exacerbating existing problems or creating new ones. This approach disregards the principle of responsible innovation and could lead to service degradation, increased operational costs, or even breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs, and regulatory requirements. Deploying automation solutions based solely on vendor claims or industry buzzwords, without independent validation or consideration of the specific service provider's environment, is another critical failure. This overlooks the unique operational context and potential integration challenges. It can result in solutions that are not fit for purpose, leading to wasted investment, operational instability, and a failure to achieve genuine process optimization. This demonstrates a lack of professional diligence and a disregard for the impact on service delivery. Focusing exclusively on reducing operational costs without a corresponding assessment of the impact on service reliability and security is a short-sighted and potentially harmful strategy. While cost reduction is a goal of optimization, it cannot come at the expense of service quality or security. This approach risks violating regulatory obligations related to service availability, data protection, and customer trust, leading to reputational damage and potential penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured approach to process optimization. This begins with a thorough understanding of existing processes and their performance. Establishing clear objectives and key performance indicators, KPI, is crucial. A risk-based methodology, incorporating impact assessments and phased rollouts with robust testing and validation, is essential. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are necessary to ensure that automation delivers sustained benefits and remains compliant with evolving regulatory landscapes and business needs. The decision-making process should always prioritize service integrity, customer satisfaction, and regulatory compliance alongside efficiency gains. Question 2. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the implementation of a new network configuration automation script for a critical service provider network requires careful consideration of potential service disruptions. Which approach best balances the benefits of automation with the imperative of network stability and compliance? Option A. Automate the configuration changes without any pre-deployment testing, relying on the script's perceived accuracy to minimize potential issues. Option B. Deploy the automation script directly to the production environment after a brief review, prioritizing rapid service deployment. Option C. Deploy the automation script to a small subset of the production network and monitor for immediate critical failures without a predefined rollback strategy. Option D. Implement the automation script in a staging environment that precisely mirrors the production network. Conduct comprehensive testing and establish a detailed rollback plan before a phased rollout to production, coupled with continuous monitoring. Correct answer is B. Deploy the automation script directly to the production environment after a brief review, prioritizing rapid service deployment. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and compliance. The core tension lies between agility and risk. Automating processes, while offering significant efficiency gains, introduces new vectors for error and potential disruption if not implemented with robust validation and rollback mechanisms. The professional challenge is to design and implement automation solutions that are not only effective, but also secure, reliable, and compliant with industry best practices and any applicable regulatory frameworks governing service provision. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, controlled rollout of automation, incorporating comprehensive testing in a staging environment that mirrors production. This includes defining clear rollback procedures and establishing monitoring to detect anomalies post-deployment. This methodology aligns with best practices for change management and risk mitigation in critical infrastructure. It ensures that potential issues are identified and addressed before impacting live services, thereby minimizing service disruption and maintaining customer trust. From a regulatory perspective, this approach supports the principle of due diligence in ensuring service availability and reliability, which are often implicit or explicit requirements in service provider agreements and potentially in broader telecommunications regulations. An incorrect approach that bypasses thorough testing and validation in a staging environment, opting for direct deployment to production, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the potential impact on service availability and customer experience, which could lead to breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs, and potentially violate regulations that mandate a certain level of service continuity. Such an approach also fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to operate services in a safe and reliable manner. Another incorrect approach, which focuses solely on the speed of automation without establishing clear rollback plans, is also professionally unsound. While speed is a benefit of automation, it should not come at the expense of recoverability. The absence of a rollback strategy means that if an automation script introduces an error, the service provider may be unable to quickly restore normal operations, leading to prolonged outages and significant customer dissatisfaction. This failure to plan for contingencies is a dereliction of professional duty and can have severe operational and reputational consequences. A third incorrect approach, which neglects to implement comprehensive monitoring after automation deployment, also poses significant risks. Automation can introduce subtle errors that may not be immediately apparent but can degrade service performance over time or lead to intermittent failures. Without adequate monitoring, these issues may go undetected until they cause a major incident. This lack of proactive oversight is a failure in operational best practice and can lead to non-compliance with performance metrics stipulated in SLAs or regulatory requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment for any proposed automation. This includes identifying potential failure points, assessing their impact, and defining mitigation strategies. Key element is the adoption of a fail-safe mindset, where automation is designed with inherent checks and balances, including thorough testing, staged rollouts, and robust rollback capabilities. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to refine automation processes and ensure ongoing stability and compliance. Professionals must prioritize reliability and service integrity, even when pursuing efficiency gains through automation. Question 3. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for faster service provisioning and dynamic network adjustments within the telecommunications sector. A service provider is considering implementing a new suite of network automation tools to achieve these goals. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework governing U.S. telecommunications providers and ethical best practices for service delivery? Option A. Engage legal and compliance teams early in the selection process to ensure that all proposed automation solutions meet or exceed relevant U.S. regulatory requirements for data privacy, network security, and service reliability, and integrate these requirements into the solution design. Option B. Prioritize the selection of automation tools that offer the most advanced technical features for rapid configuration changes, with compliance checks to be performed post-implementation. Option C. Implement automation tools with a focus on immediate performance gains, deferring comprehensive security vulnerability testing until after the initial deployment phase. Option D. Select automation tools based primarily on their cost-effectiveness, assuming that standard security features are sufficient and that compliance can be addressed through operational procedures. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the selection of automation tools that offer the most advanced technical features for rapid configuration changes, with compliance checks to be performed post-implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid technological adoption and the need for robust security and compliance within a service provider environment. The pressure to deploy new automation solutions to meet market demands must be balanced against the strict regulatory requirements governing data handling, network integrity, and service availability. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of efficiency does not inadvertently create vulnerabilities or lead to non-compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and integration of compliance requirements from the outset of the automation project. This proactive stance ensures that the chosen automation solutions are designed and implemented with security and regulatory adherence as core tenets, not as afterthoughts. Specifically, in the context of U.S. regulations relevant to service providers, e.g., FCC regulations, NIST frameworks for critical infrastructure, this approach aligns with mandates for network security, data privacy, and incident reporting. By engaging legal and compliance teams early, the organization can identify potential risks and ensure the automation strategy supports, rather than hinders, its legal and ethical obligations. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical capabilities of automation tools without considering regulatory implications is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. It risks deploying solutions that may inadvertently violate data privacy laws, e.g., aspects of HIPAA if health data is involved, or general consumer data protection principles, compromise network security in ways that violate FCC mandates for service reliability, or fail to meet reporting requirements for network outages or security incidents. Such an approach demonstrates a disregard for the legal framework governing the service provider's operations and could lead to substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing automation solutions without adequate testing for security vulnerabilities, is also professionally unacceptable. This directly contravenes the ethical responsibility to provide secure and reliable services. From a regulatory standpoint, it could lead to breaches that violate data protection laws and FCC rules regarding service continuity. The failure to test adequately is a breach of due diligence and could be interpreted as negligence, especially if a breach occurs due to known or discoverable vulnerabilities. A third incorrect approach, which involves prioritizing cost savings over compliance features in automation tool selection, is ethically and regulatorily unsound. While cost-effectiveness is a business consideration, it cannot supersede legal and ethical obligations. This approach risks selecting tools that lack necessary security controls or audit trails, thereby failing to meet regulatory requirements for data integrity and accountability. The potential for fines and legal repercussions stemming from non-compliance far outweighs any short-term cost savings. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multidisciplinary approach. Stakeholders from engineering, operations, security, legal, and compliance teams must collaborate from the project's inception. A risk assessment framework should be employed to identify potential technical, security, and regulatory risks associated with automation initiatives. Solutions should be evaluated not only on their technical merit and efficiency gains, but also on their compliance posture, security features, and alignment with relevant U.S. regulatory frameworks. Continuous monitoring and auditing of deployed automation solutions are also critical to ensure ongoing adherence to both technical and regulatory standards. Question 4. Consider a scenario where a service provider is rapidly deploying new network automation scripts to streamline customer onboarding processes. A senior network engineer, eager to demonstrate the efficiency gains, proposes to push a new set of scripts directly into the production environment without a formal review by the security and compliance teams, arguing that the scripts are well tested internally and will significantly reduce manual intervention time. Which approach best balances the need for automation with regulatory and security imperatives? Option A. Prioritize the deployment of the automation scripts based on the engineer's internal testing and schedule a retrospective review by security and compliance teams at a later date. Option B. Deploy the automation scripts to a limited set of non-critical network segments first to gauge their impact, deferring a full security and compliance review until after successful initial deployment. Option C. Implement the automation scripts after a thorough review by security and compliance teams, ensuring they align with all relevant data privacy regulations and internal security policies, and include a rollback plan. Option D. Deploy the automation scripts immediately to capitalize on the efficiency gains, with a plan to address any security or compliance issues that may arise post-deployment. The correct answer is C. Implement the automation scripts after a thorough review by security and compliance teams, ensuring they align with all relevant data privacy regulations and internal security policies, and include a rollback plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the inherent tension between rapid technological adoption and the need for robust, auditable security and compliance within a service provider environment. The pressure to deploy new automation solutions, while beneficial for efficiency and service delivery, must be balanced against the regulatory obligations and the potential for introducing new vulnerabilities or non-compliance. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of innovation does not inadvertently compromise the integrity of the network or violate established service-level agreements, SLAs, and regulatory mandates. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, risk-aware methodology that aligns with the principles of secure and compliant automation deployment. By involving security and compliance teams early, conducting thorough risk assessments, and ensuring that automation scripts are validated against established security policies and regulatory requirements, such as those governing data privacy and network resilience, the organization mitigates potential breaches and ensures adherence to legal and industry standards. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining customer trust and avoiding penalties associated with non-compliance. An incorrect approach that bypasses security and compliance reviews introduces significant regulatory and ethical failures. Failing to validate automation scripts against security policies could lead to the deployment of code that inadvertently exposes sensitive customer data or creates network backdoors, violating data protection regulations and potentially leading to severe financial and reputational damage. Similarly, neglecting compliance checks could result in automation that violates network access controls or reporting requirements mandated by regulatory bodies, leading to fines and operational disruptions. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical functionality without considering the broader impact on existing security controls, risks creating unintended conflicts or vulnerabilities that could be exploited, thereby failing in the ethical duty to provide a secure and reliable service. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes a phased approach to automation deployment. This framework involves 1. Clearly defining the business and technical objectives of the automation. 2. Conducting a comprehensive risk assessment, including security and compliance implications. 3. Engaging relevant stakeholders, security, compliance, operations throughout the development and testing lifecycle. 4. Implementing robust testing and validation procedures. And 5. Establishing clear rollback and monitoring mechanisms. This systematic process ensures that automation initiatives are not only technically sound, but also secure, compliant, and aligned with the organization's overall risk appetite and regulatory obligations. Question 5. The investigation demonstrates that the network engineering team is eager to deploy a new network automation platform to streamline provisioning and reduce manual errors. However, the security and compliance departments have expressed concerns about the platform's data handling capabilities and its adherence to data privacy regulations. The operations team is primarily focused on the platform's integration with existing monitoring tools. From a stakeholder perspective, which approach best addresses the immediate need for automation while ensuring long-term security and regulatory compliance? Option A. Select a different automation platform that is solely recommended by the security department, even if it lacks the full feature set desired by network engineering for immediate operational gains. Option B. Proceed with the automation platform deployment, prioritizing the network engineering team's timeline, and address security and compliance concerns in a subsequent phase after initial operational benefits are realized. Option C. Defer the automation platform deployment indefinitely until all departments can reach a unanimous agreement on every aspect of the platform's functionality and implementation. Option D. Initiate a phased deployment of the automation platform, starting with non-sensitive network functions, while concurrently conducting a thorough security audit and compliance review of the platform's full capabilities and data handling processes. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the automation platform deployment, prioritizing the network engineering team's timeline, and address security and compliance concerns in a subsequent phase after initial operational benefits are realized. Explanation: the investigation demonstrates a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of security and compliance. The scenario requires a stakeholder perspective, specifically focusing on how different departments perceive and prioritize automation initiatives. The challenge lies in aligning these diverse perspectives, which often have conflicting goals and understanding of technical requirements, with the overarching regulatory framework governing service providers. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive, cross-functional review that includes security and compliance teams from the outset. This proactive engagement ensures that automation solutions are designed and implemented with security controls and regulatory adherence as foundational elements, not afterthoughts. This aligns with the principles of security by design and compliance by design, which are critical in regulated industries to prevent costly remediation and potential breaches. By involving all relevant stakeholders, it fosters shared ownership and understanding, leading to more robust and sustainable automation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on network engineering's immediate operational gains without adequate security and compliance input risks introducing vulnerabilities or noncompliance. This could lead to regulatory fines, reputational damage, and increased operational costs due to the need for retrofitting security measures or addressing compliance gaps. Ethically, it fails to uphold the responsibility to protect customer data and maintain service integrity as mandated by regulatory bodies. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes a vendor's proprietary automation solution without a thorough assessment of its security posture and compliance certifications would be professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the critical due diligence required to ensure that any technology adopted meets the stringent security and regulatory requirements of a service provider. It could lead to vendor lock-in and an inability to adapt to evolving compliance landscapes. A further incorrect approach that delays security and compliance reviews until after the automation is deployed is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This reactive stance is inherently risky, as it assumes the automation will be compliant and secure, which is rarely the case without deliberate planning. It increases the likelihood of discovering critical flaws late in the process, leading to significant rework, potential service disruptions, and a failure to meet due diligence obligations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve establishing a clear governance framework for automation projects. This framework should mandate early and continuous engagement with all relevant stakeholders, including security, compliance, legal, and operations. A risk-based assessment should be conducted for each automation initiative, identifying potential security and compliance impacts. Prioritization should be given to solutions that demonstrate a commitment to security and compliance best practices, and thorough testing and validation should be performed before deployment. Question 6. Upon reviewing the proposed automation strategy for deploying new network services, a service provider's engineering team is eager to leverage automated provisioning to accelerate time to market. However, the security and compliance departments have raised concerns about potential vulnerabilities and the ability to audit changes effectively. What approach best balances the need for rapid deployment with the imperative to maintain robust security and regulatory compliance within the U.S. telecommunications framework? Option A. Develop automation scripts that are functional but do not explicitly include detailed logging or security validation, assuming that downstream monitoring tools will capture any necessary information for auditing. Option B. Implement automated provisioning workflows that include integrated security validation checks and generate comprehensive audit logs for all actions, while ensuring security and compliance teams review and approve the automation designs before deployment. Option C. Deploy automated provisioning with a focus solely on functional aspects, relying on existing manual processes to identify and remediate any security or compliance deviations after the services are live. Option D. Prioritize rapid deployment by enabling automated provisioning immediately and schedule manual security audits and compliance checks for a later date to address any identified issues. The correct answer is B. Implement automated provisioning workflows that include integrated security validation checks and generate comprehensive audit logs for all actions, while ensuring security and compliance teams review and approve the automation designs before deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with long-term security and compliance mandates. The challenge lies in the inherent tension between rapid deployment of new services, which automation facilitates, and the rigorous security validation and auditing required by regulatory bodies. Professionals must navigate this by ensuring that automation solutions are not only functional, but also inherently secure and auditable from the outset, rather than treating security as an afterthought. The correct approach represents best professional practice, because it prioritizes a security-first mindset integrated into the automation lifecycle. By involving security and compliance teams early, and by embedding security checks and audit trails directly into the automation workflows, the organization adheres to the principles of security by design and compliance by design. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliance issues that could lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and service disruptions, all of which are critical concerns under relevant U.S. telecommunications regulations. The focus on automated validation and continuous monitoring ensures that the network remains compliant and secure as changes are implemented, aligning with the spirit of regulatory oversight designed to protect consumers and national infrastructure. An incorrect approach that bypasses security reviews for speed fails to uphold the professional responsibility to maintain a secure and compliant network. This directly contravenes U.S. regulatory frameworks that mandate robust security measures and auditing capabilities for telecommunications providers. Such a failure could result in severe penalties, including fines from the FCC, and could be viewed as gross negligence. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on manual post-deployment security checks is inefficient and prone to human error. While it might eventually catch issues, it fails to leverage automation for its intended purpose of proactive risk mitigation. This reactive posture increases the likelihood of breaches or compliance violations occurring before detection, which is unacceptable from a regulatory and professional standpoint. A third incorrect approach that ignores the auditability requirements of the automation scripts themselves creates a blind spot. Without clear, auditable logs of automated actions, it becomes impossible to demonstrate compliance during regulatory audits or to effectively investigate security incidents. This lack of transparency is a significant ethical and regulatory failing, as it hinders accountability and oversight. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment where security and compliance requirements are treated as non-negotiable features of any automation initiative. This means integrating these considerations from the initial design phase, fostering collaboration between engineering, security, and compliance teams, and ensuring that all automated processes are inherently secure, auditable, and aligned with relevant U.S. regulatory mandates. The goal is to achieve efficiency without compromising integrity or compliance. Question 7. Compliance review shows that a new network automation platform intended to streamline provisioning and configuration management for a large-scale service provider network is being deployed without a formal validation against the company's established operational security policies and data handling guidelines. The automation team argues that the platform's technical capabilities are proven and that delaying deployment to conduct a policy review will impede service delivery timelines. Which of the following approaches best represents professional best practice in this scenario, considering the need for both efficient automation and strict adherence to regulatory frameworks governing service providers? Option A. Proceed with the automation deployment as planned, prioritizing speed and efficiency, and address any policy deviations discovered post-implementation through reactive measures. Option B. Implement the automation platform with minimal policy checks, focusing only on critical security controls, and postpone a full policy review until the next scheduled operational audit cycle. Option C. Delegate the responsibility for policy validation to the end users of the automated services, assuming they will report any issues encountered during their operational use. Option D. Halt the deployment immediately and conduct a comprehensive review of the automation platform against all relevant operational security policies and data handling guidelines. Subsequently, implement the automation in a phased manner, starting with a pilot group, with continuous monitoring and validation against policies throughout the rollout. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the automation deployment as planned, prioritizing speed and efficiency, and address any policy deviations discovered post-implementation through reactive measures. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in service provider environments, ensuring that automation solutions adhere to established operational and security policies, especially when introducing new technologies. The professional challenge lies in balancing the benefits of automation, efficiency, speed, with the imperative of maintaining service integrity and compliance. This requires a nuanced understanding of how automation impacts existing workflows and governance structures. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, policy-driven integration of automation. This aligns with best practices for managing change in regulated environments by first validating the automation against existing policies and then implementing it in a controlled manner. Service providers can mitigate risks and ensure that the automation itself does not introduce vulnerabilities or compliance gaps. This approach demonstrates a commitment to operational excellence and regulatory adherence, which are paramount in the service provider industry. An incorrect approach that bypasses policy validation before deployment is professionally unacceptable. It represents a failure to conduct due diligence and a disregard for established governance. This can lead to significant regulatory breaches, security incidents, and service disruptions, all of which carry severe financial and reputational consequences. Such an approach demonstrates a lack of risk management and a failure to uphold professional responsibilities. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on technical functionality without considering policy implications, is also problematic. While technical success is important, it is insufficient if it operates outside the bounds of approved policies. This oversight can lead to unintended consequences, such as data privacy violations or non-compliance with service-level agreements, even if the automation performs its intended technical task. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment and a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape. Before implementing any automation, a thorough review of relevant policies, standards, and legal requirements is essential. A phased rollout, starting with pilot programs and continuous monitoring, allows for early detection and remediation of issues. Collaboration between engineering, operations, and compliance teams is crucial to ensure that automation initiatives are both technically sound and fully compliant. Question 8. Examination of the data shows that a service provider is rapidly developing and deploying automated network configuration scripts to improve provisioning times. However, The development team is under pressure to deliver these solutions quickly and is considering skipping formal security vulnerability assessments and compliance validation steps for initial deployments to meet aggressive timelines. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible and compliant approach to this situation? Option A. Prioritize speed of deployment by releasing the automated scripts immediately and addressing any security or compliance concerns that arise in subsequent reactive updates. Option B. Focus solely on the functional aspects of the automation, assuming that the underlying network infrastructure already meets all security and compliance requirements. Option C. Deploy the automated scripts to a limited, non-critical segment of the network first to gauge their impact, with the understanding that full security and compliance checks will be performed later. Option D. Implement a phased rollout of the automated scripts, with each phase undergoing rigorous security vulnerability scanning and compliance validation before proceeding to the next, ensuring that any identified issues are remediated promptly. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased rollout of the automated scripts, with each phase undergoing rigorous security vulnerability scanning and compliance validation before proceeding to the next, ensuring that any identified issues are remediated promptly. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of security and compliance. The challenge lies in the inherent tension between rapid deployment of automated solutions and the rigorous validation required to ensure these solutions do not introduce vulnerabilities or violate regulatory mandates. Professionals must navigate this by prioritizing a structured, risk-aware approach that integrates security and compliance from the outset, rather than treating them as afterthoughts. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it embeds security and compliance considerations into the entire automation lifecycle. This aligns with the principles of secure development and responsible automation, which are increasingly mandated by regulatory bodies. By conducting thorough security assessments and ensuring adherence to relevant service provider regulations, e.g., those governing data privacy, network integrity, and service availability, the organization mitigates risks of breaches, service disruptions, and legal penalties. This proactive stance fosters trust with stakeholders and customers, demonstrating a commitment to operational excellence and regulatory adherence. An incorrect approach that bypasses security reviews for speed introduces significant regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, deploying automation without proper vulnerability scanning could lead to a data breach, violating data protection regulations, such as those that might be enforced by the FCC or NIST guidelines in a U.S. context, assuming that is the relevant jurisdiction for this exam. Failure to protect customer data is not only unethical, but also carries severe legal consequences, including fines and reputational damage. Similarly, automating network changes without validating their impact on service-level agreements, SLAs, could lead to widespread service degradation or outages, violating contractual obligations and potentially incurring penalties under telecommunications regulations. This demonstrates a disregard for operational integrity and customer trust. Another incorrect approach that ignores compliance checks before deployment is equally problematic. Automating processes that handle sensitive customer information without ensuring compliance with privacy laws would be a direct violation. This could result in significant legal repercussions and a loss of customer confidence. The professional reasoning process should involve a risk-based assessment at each stage of automation development and deployment. This includes identifying potential security and compliance risks, evaluating their impact, and implementing appropriate controls. Collaboration between engineering, security, and compliance teams is crucial to ensure that automation initiatives are both innovative and responsible. A phased rollout with continuous monitoring and auditing further strengthens the process, allowing for early detection and remediation of any issues. Question 9. Performance analysis shows that a new automated provisioning workflow for a critical customer service is experiencing intermittent failures and potential security misconfigurations. The engineering team is under pressure to quickly resolve these issues and ensure the service is fully operational. Which approach best balances the need for rapid resolution with the imperative to maintain regulatory compliance and service integrity? Option A. Deploy a hotfix for the automation workflow that addresses the immediate functional failures, assuming that security and compliance will be implicitly maintained by the underlying network infrastructure and existing security policies. Option B. Expedite the resolution by bypassing the security review process for the current fix, focusing solely on restoring service functionality, and deferring the security and compliance checks to a later, less critical maintenance window. Option C. Implement a temporary workaround by manually configuring the affected customer service parameters for all impacted customers, while the automation team continues to debug the workflow in isolation without immediate pressure for a production fix. Option D. Prioritize immediate rollback of the automation workflow to a known stable state, followed by a thorough root cause analysis of the failures and misconfigurations, incorporating security and compliance validation into the redeployment plan. The correct answer is D. Prioritize immediate rollback of the automation workflow to a known stable state, followed by a thorough root cause analysis of the failures and misconfigurations, incorporating security and compliance validation into the redeployment plan. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid service deployment and the need for robust security and compliance within a service provider context. The pressure to deliver new automated services quickly can lead to shortcuts that bypass essential security validation and regulatory adherence, potentially exposing the service provider to significant risks, including data breaches, service disruption, and regulatory penalties. Careful judgment is required to balance innovation with responsibility. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-aware integration of automation into the service provider's operational framework. By embedding security and compliance checks early in the automation lifecycle, from design through deployment and ongoing monitoring, it ensures that new services meet all relevant regulatory requirements and security standards. This proactive stance minimizes the likelihood of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliance issues, thereby protecting the provider's reputation and customer trust. Adherence to Cisco's recommended practices for SP automation, which emphasize security and operational integrity, is crucial. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed of deployment without adequate security validation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Specifically, it could violate data privacy regulations, e.g., GDPR if applicable, or equivalent U.S. regulations concerning customer data protection, by failing to implement necessary safeguards for automated data handling. It also breaches ethical obligations to customers to provide secure and reliable services. Another incorrect approach, which relies on manual, ad hoc security reviews after deployment, is also professionally unacceptable. This reactive posture is inefficient and increases the risk of undetected vulnerabilities persisting in production, leading to potential breaches and non-compliance with service-level agreements, SLAs, and industry standards. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to integrate security as a core component of the automation strategy. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that integrates security and compliance into every stage of the automation lifecycle. This involves 1. Threat modeling and risk assessment during the design phase of automation workflows. 2. Implementing automated security checks and compliance validations within CI/CD pipelines. 3. Establishing clear governance and change management processes for automation deployments. 4. Continuous monitoring and auditing of automated systems for security anomalies and compliance drift. This structured approach ensures that automation enhances service delivery without compromising security or regulatory standing. Question 10. System analysis indicates that a service provider is rapidly developing automation scripts to provision new customer services. To accelerate time to market, there is pressure to bypass rigorous testing phases, which approach best balances the need for speed with the imperative to maintain service reliability and adhere to operational standards. Option A. Prioritize deployment speed over the establishment of comprehensive rollback procedures for automation scripts. Option B. Implement automation scripts directly into the production environment to minimize delays. Option C. Deploy automation scripts after thorough validation in a dedicated staging environment and conduct post-deployment smoke tests. Option D. Rely solely on vendor-provided test results for automation scripts before production deployment. Correct answer is B. Implement automation scripts directly into the production environment to minimize delays. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the drive for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and adhere to stringent service level agreements, SLAs. Pressure to innovate and deliver new capabilities quickly can lead to shortcuts or insufficient validation, potentially impacting customer experience and incurring penalties. The professional challenge lies in establishing a robust decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and compliance without stifling innovation. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, risk-based validation strategy integrated into the automation pipeline. This aligns with best practices in network automation and operational excellence, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks focused on service reliability and customer protection. By incorporating automated testing at multiple stages, e.g., pre-deployment, post-deployment smoke tests, ongoing performance monitoring, the risk of introducing service-impacting issues is significantly reduced. This proactive approach ensures that new automation scripts and configurations are thoroughly vetted against predefined criteria, minimizing the likelihood of SLA breaches. This aligns with the general expectation of service providers to deliver reliable services, a core tenet of telecommunications regulation aimed at ensuring public access to essential services. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying automation scripts directly into the production environment without any form of pre-validation or staged rollout is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the potential for unintended consequences, which could lead to widespread service disruption, violating customer trust, and potentially breaching contractual obligations, SLAs. Such a failure could attract regulatory scrutiny for non-compliance with service availability mandates. Implementing automation solely based on vendor claims without independent verification exposes the service provider to risks associated with unproven technologies or configurations. This can lead to unexpected behavior and performance degradation, again potentially violating SLAs and customer expectations. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence in ensuring the reliability of the services being automated. Focusing exclusively on the speed of deployment without establishing clear rollback procedures or contingency plans for automation failures is also professionally unsound. While speed is a business objective, it cannot come at the expense of operational resilience. The absence of a robust recovery mechanism increases the impact of any automation error, leading to prolonged outages and potential regulatory penalties for failing to meet service restoration targets. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a safety-first approach to automation deployment. This involves 1. Risk assessment, thoroughly evaluating the potential impact of any automation script or change on network stability and service availability. 2. Phased rollout, implementing automation in stages, starting with lab environments, then to a small subset of production before a full rollout. 3. Automated testing, integrating comprehensive automated testing at each stage, covering functional correctness, performance, and security. 4. Monitoring and alerting, establishing robust monitoring to detect anomalies immediately after deployment and setting up automated alerts for rapid response. 5. Rollback strategy, defining clear and tested rollback procedures to quickly revert to a stable state if issues arise. 6. Documentation and review, maintaining detailed documentation of automation processes and conducting regular reviews to identify areas for improvement. This systematic approach ensures that the benefits of automation are realized while mitigating risks and upholding professional and regulatory obligations. Question 11. Analysis of a service provider's decision to implement a new network automation platform for provisioning services, considering the urgency to reduce operational costs and improve service delivery times. What is the most responsible approach to ensure compliance with regulatory frameworks governing network security and data privacy within the specified jurisdiction? Option A. Rely solely on the vendor's security certifications and documentation, assuming the platform meets all regulatory requirements without independent verification. Option B. Deploy the automation platform immediately to realize cost savings and speed up service delivery, addressing any security or compliance concerns reactively as they arise. Option C. Prioritize the speed of deployment by bypassing standard change management and security review processes, focusing only on functional testing of the automation. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance audit of the automation platform and its integration points before full deployment, and implement a phased rollout with continuous monitoring. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance audit of the automation platform and its integration points before full deployment, and implement a phased rollout with continuous monitoring. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of security and compliance. The pressure to deploy a new automation solution quickly, driven by business demands, can lead to shortcuts that compromise established security protocols. The professional challenge lies in navigating these competing priorities, ensuring that the pursuit of automation does not inadvertently create vulnerabilities or violate regulatory mandates. Careful judgment is required to assess the risks associated with different deployment strategies and to advocate for approaches that uphold both innovation and security. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, risk-assessed deployment that integrates security and compliance checks from the outset. This aligns with best practices in secure software development and deployment, often mandated by regulatory frameworks that require due diligence in managing technological risks. By performing a thorough security review and ensuring compliance with relevant service provider regulations, e.g., those governing network security, data privacy, and service availability within the specified jurisdiction, the organization demonstrates a commitment to responsible automation. This approach mitigates the risk of introducing new vulnerabilities, ensures adherence to legal and industry standards, and builds trust with stakeholders by prioritizing a secure and compliant operational environment. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining the integrity and reliability of critical network infrastructure. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves deploying the automation solution without a comprehensive security review, relying solely on vendor claims. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the principle of due diligence, which requires organizations to actively assess and manage risks associated with new technologies. Failure to conduct an independent security review can lead to the introduction of exploitable vulnerabilities, potentially resulting in data breaches, service disruptions, and noncompliance with data protection and network security regulations. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the security of customer data and the reliability of services. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over thorough testing and validation of the automation's impact on existing security controls. This approach risks unintended consequences, such as the automation inadvertently disabling critical security features or creating new attack vectors. From a regulatory standpoint, this can lead to violations of service-level agreements, SLAs, and network security mandates that require robust and continuously monitored security postures. It also represents a failure in professional responsibility to ensure that deployed solutions do not degrade the overall security of the network. A third incorrect approach is to bypass established change management and approval processes in the name of rapid deployment. This is a direct contravention of many operational and security frameworks designed to prevent errors and unauthorized changes. Such a failure can lead to significant operational instability, security breaches, and regulatory penalties for non-compliance with audit trails and controlled deployment procedures. It undermines the principles of accountability and transparency in IT operations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes a risk-based approach to automation deployment. This involves 1. Understanding the regulatory landscape. Identify all applicable laws, regulations, and industry standards relevant to service provider operations and automation within the specific jurisdiction. 2. Conducting thorough risk assessments. Evaluate potential security, operational, and compliance risks associated with the proposed automation solution and its deployment strategy. 3. Integrating security and compliance early. Ensure that security and compliance requirements are considered and addressed throughout the entire automation lifecycle, from design to deployment and ongoing management. 4. Phased and controlled deployment. Implement automation solutions in a staged manner, with clear rollback plans and continuous monitoring to detect and address any issues promptly. 5. Adhering to change management. Strictly follow established change management and approval processes to ensure that all deployments are documented, reviewed, and authorized. 6. Continuous monitoring and improvement. Establish mechanisms for ongoing monitoring of the automation's performance, security, and compliance status, and be prepared to adapt and improve as needed. Question 12. System analysis indicates that a new network automation solution for provisioning customer services has been developed and tested in a simulated lab environment. The operations team is eager to deploy it to production to realize efficiency gains and meet aggressive service delivery timelines. However, the staging environment, which closely mirrors production, has not yet been fully utilized for this specific solution due to resource constraints. The project manager is pushing for immediate deployment to the entire production network to meet contractual obligations. What is the most professionally responsible approach to deploying this automation solution? Option A. Deploy the automation solution incrementally to production, starting with a small subset of customers and gradually expanding, with continuous monitoring and rollback capabilities. Option B. Deploy the automation solution directly to the entire production environment to meet the aggressive service delivery timelines and realize immediate efficiency gains. Option C. Deploy the automation solution to the staging environment first, even with resource constraints, to ensure it functions correctly in a production-like setting before any wider rollout. Option D. Deploy the automation solution only in the lab environment, as it is the only fully validated environment, and postpone production deployment until further notice. The correct answer is A. Deploy the automation solution incrementally to production, starting with a small subset of customers and gradually expanding, with continuous monitoring and rollback capabilities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and adhere to established operational procedures. The pressure to deliver new features quickly can lead to shortcuts or the bypassing of critical validation steps, potentially introducing risks of service disruption, security vulnerabilities, or non-compliance with internal policies and external regulations. The challenge lies in making a judgment call that prioritizes both innovation and operational integrity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased rollout with robust testing and validation at each stage. This aligns with best practices in network automation and service deployment, which are implicitly guided by principles of risk management and operational excellence often found in industry standards and regulatory expectations for critical infrastructure. By implementing a controlled deployment, the organization can identify and mitigate potential issues before they impact a wider customer base. This approach demonstrates due diligence, a key ethical and professional standard, ensuring that the automation solution is not only functional but also reliable and secure. It also supports auditable processes, which are often a regulatory requirement for service providers. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying the automation solution directly to the entire production environment without prior validation or a phased rollout represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses essential risk assessment and control mechanisms, increasing the likelihood of widespread service disruption. Such an action could violate service-level agreements, SLAs, with customers, leading to financial penalties and reputational damage. It also demonstrates a disregard for established operational procedures and potentially for regulatory mandates concerning network reliability and security. Implementing the automation solution only in a lab environment that does not accurately reflect the complexities and scale of the production network is also professionally unacceptable. While lab testing is a necessary step, it is insufficient on its own. The failure to validate in a staging or pre-production environment that mirrors the live network means that critical integration issues or performance bottlenecks specific to the production environment will likely be missed. This can lead to unexpected failures upon deployment, again risking service disruption and non-compliance with operational standards. Focusing solely on the speed of deployment without considering the impact on network stability or security is a direct contravention of professional responsibility. Automation in service providers is intended to enhance efficiency and reliability, not to introduce new risks. Prioritizing speed over safety and stability can lead to breaches of security protocols, data integrity issues, and ultimately, a failure to meet the core obligations of a service provider, which often have regulatory underpinnings related to service continuity and customer protection. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and mitigation. This involves 1. Understanding the business objective. Clearly define the goals of the automation initiative. 2. Identifying potential risks. Enumerate all possible negative outcomes, including service disruption, security breaches, and compliance violations. 3. Evaluating the impact and likelihood of risks. Quantify the potential severity and probability of each identified risk. 4. Developing mitigation strategies. Design controls and processes to reduce or eliminate identified risks. This includes phased rollouts, comprehensive testing in representative environments, and rollback plans. 5. Seeking stakeholder alignment. Ensure that all relevant parties, including operations, security, and business units, are aware of and agree with the proposed deployment strategy. 6. Continuous monitoring and feedback. Establish mechanisms to track the performance of the automation and gather feedback for ongoing improvement. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, responsible, and aligned with professional and regulatory expectations for critical service infrastructure. Question 13. Stakeholder feedback indicates a strong desire to accelerate the deployment of new automated network services to gain a competitive edge. However, the operations team is concerned about the potential for introducing instability into the production environment due to the complexity of the new automation scripts. Which approach best balances the need for rapid deployment with the imperative of maintaining network stability and operational integrity? Option A. Develop and thoroughly test automation scripts in a dedicated lab environment that precisely mirrors production, followed by a phased rollout to a small segment of the production network with robust monitoring and immediate rollback capabilities. Option B. Implement the automation scripts in production with basic functional testing, but defer the development of comprehensive rollback procedures and detailed monitoring until after the initial deployment is complete. Option C. Deploy the new automation scripts directly into the production environment to expedite service delivery, relying on the operations team's expertise to address any immediate issues that arise. Option D. Prioritize the speed of deployment by implementing the automation scripts across the entire production network without extensive pre-deployment testing, assuming that any issues can be resolved post-implementation. The correct answer is A. Develop and thoroughly test automation scripts in a dedicated lab environment that precisely mirrors production, followed by a phased rollout to a small segment of the production network with robust monitoring and immediate rollback capabilities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the immediate need for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and adhere to stringent operational compliance. Stakeholder pressure for speed can often conflict with the meticulous testing and validation required by established operational procedures and regulatory mandates. The challenge lies in identifying an automation strategy that satisfies both business agility and operational integrity, especially when dealing with critical infrastructure where downtime or service degradation has significant financial and reputational consequences. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, risk-mitigated deployment strategy. This involves developing and rigorously testing automation scripts in isolated lab environments that accurately mirror production conditions. Subsequently, a controlled rollout to a small subset of the production network, coupled with comprehensive monitoring and rollback capabilities, is crucial. This methodology aligns with best practices for network automation, which prioritize stability and reliability. From a regulatory and compliance perspective, this approach demonstrates due diligence in ensuring that automated changes do not inadvertently violate service-level agreements, SLAs, introduce security vulnerabilities, or disrupt critical services, thereby upholding the provider's commitment to its customers and regulatory bodies. This systematic validation process is a cornerstone of responsible operational management in regulated industries. Incorrect approaches analysis. Deploying automation scripts directly into the production environment without prior validation in a representative lab setting is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses essential quality assurance steps, increasing the risk of widespread service disruption. This directly contravenes the implicit obligation to provide reliable service and could lead to breaches of SLAs, resulting in financial penalties and reputational damage. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility in managing critical infrastructure. Implementing automation without establishing clear rollback procedures or comprehensive monitoring mechanisms is another critical failure. This leaves the network vulnerable to unrecoverable states in the event of automation errors. It represents a failure to adequately plan for contingencies, which is a fundamental aspect of operational risk management. Ethically, it shows a disregard for the potential impact on end users and the provider's ability to restore service promptly. Focusing solely on the speed of deployment without considering the impact on network stability or compliance requirements is a short-sighted approach. While agility is important, it cannot come at the expense of operational integrity. This approach risks introducing instability that could lead to service outages, security breaches, or non-compliance with industry standards and regulations, ultimately undermining the long-term goals of automation. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes risk assessment and mitigation throughout the automation lifecycle. This involves 1. Understanding stakeholder needs. Clearly define the business objectives and the urgency of the automation initiative. 2. Assessing technical feasibility and risk. Evaluate the complexity of the automation, potential impact on network stability and security implications. 3. Developing a phased implementation plan. Design a strategy that includes lab testing, pilot deployments, and gradual production rollout. 4. Establishing robust monitoring and rollback capabilities. Ensure that any changes can be effectively monitored and reversed if issues arise. 5. Ensuring compliance. Verify that the automation strategy adheres to all relevant regulatory requirements and internal policies. 6. Continuous improvement. Regularly review and refine automation processes based on operational feedback and performance data. Question 14. Research into the implementation of a new network automation solution for provisioning and configuration management within a large-scale service provider network has revealed potential dependencies on legacy systems and undocumented operational procedures. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure compliance with service-level agreements and regulatory mandates? Option A. Prioritize the automation of the most frequently performed tasks first, deferring the assessment of complex dependencies until after initial deployment to gain early operational efficiencies. Option B. Immediately halt the automation project and revert to manual provisioning to avoid any potential disruption, regardless of the long-term benefits of automation. Option C. Proceed with the automation deployment, relying on vendor documentation and assuming that any issues will be addressed through post-deployment troubleshooting and patching. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the effects of the automation on network performance, security, data integrity, and existing operational workflows, and develop mitigation strategies for identified risks. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the effects of the automation on network performance, security, data integrity, and existing operational workflows, and develop mitigation strategies for identified risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent risks associated with automating critical network functions without a thorough understanding of their potential impact on service availability and compliance. Service providers operate under strict regulatory obligations to maintain service levels and data integrity. Failure to adequately assess the impact of automation can lead to service disruptions, data breaches, or non-compliance with industry standards and regulations, potentially resulting in significant financial penalties and reputational damage. The correct approach, which involves a comprehensive impact assessment before deploying automation, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption and risk management. By systematically evaluating how automation changes affect network behavior, performance, and security, service providers can proactively identify and mitigate potential issues. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining service-level agreements, SLAs, and adhering to regulatory frameworks that mandate service reliability and security. For example, in the U.S., the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, has regulations concerning network reliability and outage reporting, which a robust impact assessment directly supports. Similarly, data privacy regulations like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, necessitate understanding how automation might affect data handling and security. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately performs an impact assessment is professionally unacceptable and carries significant regulatory and ethical failures. For instance, deploying automation based solely on perceived efficiency gains without considering its downstream effects on network stability or data security violates the ethical duty to provide reliable services and protect customer data. This could lead to violations of regulations such as the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOXA, if financial reporting systems are affected, or HIPAA if patient data is compromised due to an automated process failure. Another failure would be to assume that vendor-provided automation solutions are inherently risk-free, neglecting the responsibility to validate their integration and impact within the specific service provider environment. This oversight can lead to non-compliance with general cybersecurity best practices and specific industry mandates for due diligence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk management framework. This includes identifying potential automation use cases, defining clear objectives and success criteria, conducting a thorough impact assessment covering technical, operational, and security domains, developing a phased deployment plan with rollback capabilities, and establishing continuous monitoring and validation post-implementation. Professionals must prioritize understanding the what-if scenarios for any automated change, ensuring that the benefits of automation do not come at the expense of service integrity or regulatory compliance. Question 15. Benchmark analysis indicates that a service provider is planning to automate network provisioning and configuration management using Cisco's automation solutions. The primary goal is to accelerate service delivery and reduce manual errors. What is the most critical component of the impact assessment process to ensure successful and compliant deployment? Option A, a rapid deployment plan that prioritizes getting the automation live as quickly as possible to demonstrate immediate efficiency gains. Option B, deferring the assessment of operational and business impacts until after the automation has been fully implemented and is in production. Option C, a focus solely on the technical feasibility and integration of the automation tools with the existing network infrastructure. Option D, a comprehensive evaluation of potential impacts on existing operational workflows, security policies, and service-level agreements, coupled with a detailed rollback strategy. The correct answer is D, a comprehensive evaluation of potential impacts on existing operational workflows, security policies, and service-level agreements, coupled with a detailed rollback strategy. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge related to the impact assessment of introducing new automation technologies within a Cisco service provider environment, specifically concerning the 300-535 SPAUTO exam scope. The core difficulty lies in balancing the potential benefits of automation, efficiency, speed, reduced errors, against the risks of unintended consequences, such as service degradation, security vulnerabilities, or noncompliance with operational standards. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to ensure that the automation initiative aligns with business objectives and regulatory requirements without introducing unacceptable risks. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation that considers technical, operational, and business impacts. This includes identifying all affected systems and processes, assessing potential disruptions, defining mitigation strategies, and establishing clear rollback plans. Such a methodical approach is best professional practice because it proactively identifies and addresses risks, ensuring a smoother transition and minimizing negative consequences. It aligns with the principles of responsible technology deployment, emphasizing due diligence and risk management, which are implicitly expected in regulated service provider environments. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical implementation without considering the broader operational and business implications would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to overlooking critical dependencies, failing to adequately train operational staff, or not accounting for the impact on customer service level agreements, SLAs. Such a failure represents a regulatory and ethical lapse by not ensuring the stability and reliability of services, which are paramount in the service provider industry. Another incorrect approach might be to defer the impact assessment to a later stage, assuming that issues will be resolved as they arise. This reactive stance is professionally unsound as it increases the likelihood of significant service disruptions, potential data breaches, or compliance violations that could have severe financial and reputational consequences. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to adhere to best practices in change management and risk mitigation. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed of deployment over thoroughness, cutting corners on testing or validation, is also professionally unacceptable. This can lead to the introduction of poorly understood automation that may have unforeseen negative impacts on network stability, security posture, or operational efficiency. It violates the ethical obligation to deliver reliable and secure services. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This includes defining the scope of the automation, identifying potential hazards and failure modes, analyzing the likelihood and impact of these failures, and developing appropriate control measures. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential to adapt to evolving risks and ensure ongoing compliance and operational excellence. Question 16. The assessment process reveals that a new automation initiative aims to streamline the deployment of new customer services on the Cisco SP core network. The engineering team has developed sophisticated Python scripts leveraging netconf and Yang models to configure devices. However, there is a debate regarding the process for deploying these scripts into the production environment. One faction advocates for direct deployment to expedite service delivery, arguing that the scripts have been thoroughly tested in a lab environment. Another group insists on treating each script deployment as a formal change request within the existing IT service management (ITSM) framework, requiring peer review, scheduled maintenance windows, and post-implementation verification. A third perspective suggests deploying the scripts to a limited set of non-critical devices, first to gauge real-world performance before a wider rollout, which approach best aligns with professional best practices for service providers in managing automated network changes and ensuring service continuity. Option A. Deploying automation scripts to a limited set of non-critical devices, first to gauge real-world performance before a wider rollout. Option B. Treating each automation script deployment as a formal change request within the ITSM framework, requiring peer review, scheduled maintenance windows, and post-implementation verification. Option C. Implementing the automation scripts without formal change control, assuming that the benefits of rapid deployment outweigh potential risks. Option D. Direct deployment of automation scripts to expedite service delivery, relying on lab testing as sufficient validation for production environments. The correct answer is B. Treating each automation script deployment as a formal change request within the ITSM framework, requiring peer review, scheduled maintenance windows, and post-implementation verification. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the drive for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and adhere to established operational procedures. This scenario is professionally challenging because the pressure to innovate and deliver new revenue streams can sometimes overshadow the meticulous planning and validation required for network changes. A failure to properly integrate automation into existing change management processes can lead to unintended consequences, service disruptions, and potential breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs. Careful judgment is required to ensure that automation tools are not deployed in a manner that bypasses critical checkpoints or introduces unmanaged risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it emphasizes a phased, controlled integration of automation within the existing IT service management (ITSM) framework, specifically change management. This aligns with industry best practices and regulatory expectations for service providers, which often mandate documented change control processes to ensure service continuity and minimize risk. By treating automation scripts and workflows as formal changes, requiring review, testing, and approval, the organization upholds its commitment to operational excellence and regulatory compliance. This methodical approach ensures that automation enhances efficiency without compromising the integrity and reliability of the network, thereby protecting customer services and maintaining trust. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control for automation deployment is professionally unacceptable due to significant regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it violates the principles of good governance and risk management, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by regulatory bodies overseeing critical infrastructure like telecommunications networks. Such a failure to document and approve changes can lead to an inability to audit network modifications, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance with any relevant operational standards or security mandates. Ethically, it represents a disregard for the potential impact on customers and the broader service ecosystem, prioritizing speed over safety and reliability. This can erode customer confidence and lead to reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical functionality of automation scripts without considering their integration into operational workflows is also professionally unsound. While the script might technically achieve its intended outcome, its deployment without proper integration into monitoring, rollback, and incident management processes creates a black box scenario. This failure to consider the operational lifecycle of the automation leads to a lack of visibility and control, increasing the risk of undetected errors or an inability to effectively respond to issues. This can be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in managing automated systems, potentially contravening implicit or explicit requirements for robust operational oversight. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment and a clear understanding of the organization's ITSM policies. Before deploying any automation, professionals should ask: 1. Does this automation introduce a change to the network or operational processes? 2. If so, does it require a formal change request according to our ITSM framework? 3. What are the potential risks associated with this automation, both technically and operationally? 4. Have these risks been adequately assessed and mitigated? 5. Is there a clear rollback plan in case of failure? 6. How will the performance and impact of this automation be monitored? 7. Does this automation comply with all relevant internal policies and external regulations? By systematically addressing these questions, professionals can ensure that automation is implemented responsibly, enhancing service delivery, while maintaining the highest standards of reliability and compliance. Question 17. Which approach would be most effective for a service provider to implement a new network automation solution for provisioning customer services, considering the need for rapid deployment while ensuring network stability and compliance with operational guidelines? Option A. Utilize a fully automated, end-to-end provisioning workflow provided by the vendor without any internal customization or testing, assuming it meets general industry standards. Option B. Develop and test the automation solution extensively in a lab environment, followed by a phased rollout starting with a small subset of non-critical services before full production deployment. Option C. Implement the automation solution directly into the production environment after a brief vendor demonstration, with a plan to address any issues as they arise. Option D. Prioritize the automation of the most complex provisioning tasks first to demonstrate immediate impact, even if it requires bypassing some standard testing procedures. The correct answer is C. Implement the automation solution directly into the production environment after a brief vendor demonstration, with a plan to address any issues as they arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in service provider automation, balancing the need for rapid deployment of new services with the imperative to maintain network stability and compliance with established operational procedures. The professional challenge lies in selecting an automation strategy that minimizes risk while maximizing efficiency. Careful judgment is required to avoid introducing vulnerabilities or operational disruptions that could impact service availability and customer trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-mitigated deployment of automation. By starting with a pilot program in a controlled environment and gradually expanding, service providers can identify and address potential issues before they affect production networks. This aligns with industry best practices for change management and network operations, which emphasize thorough testing and validation. Furthermore, this approach allows for continuous feedback and refinement of automation scripts and workflows, ensuring they meet both technical requirements and operational standards. This methodical process is crucial for maintaining the integrity and reliability of critical service provider infrastructure. An incorrect approach that bypasses thorough testing and validation before production deployment poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Such an approach could lead to network outages, service degradation, or security breaches, all of which can result in breaches of service level agreements, SLAs, and potential regulatory penalties. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for customer impact and operational responsibility. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on vendor-provided, uncustomized automation solutions without proper integration testing can lead to unforeseen compatibility issues and operational complexities. This can result in inefficient workflows and a failure to meet specific service provider requirements, potentially violating internal operational policies and industry standards for network management. A third incorrect approach that focuses on automation for the sake of automation, without clear business objectives or a defined return on investment, is professionally unsound. It wastes resources and can lead to the implementation of solutions that do not effectively address operational pain points or contribute to strategic goals, potentially violating principles of fiscal responsibility and efficient resource allocation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the business and operational objectives for automation. This should be followed by a thorough risk assessment, identifying potential impacts on network stability, security, and service delivery. A phased implementation strategy, including pilot programs and rigorous testing, should be developed. Continuous monitoring and feedback loops are essential for iterative improvement. Finally, adherence to established change management processes and regulatory compliance frameworks should be integrated into every stage of the automation lifecycle. Question 18. The review process indicates that a new automated service provisioning workflow for VPN services has been implemented with the goal of reducing deployment times. However, concerns have been raised regarding the potential for unintended consequences due to the direct integration of the automation script with the live network configuration. What is the most appropriate course of action to address these concerns while still pursuing the benefits of automation? Option A. Immediately halt the use of the automated provisioning workflow and revert to manual provisioning until a comprehensive validation and testing framework is established. Option B. Proceed with the automated provisioning workflow as is, relying on the script's internal error checking to catch any issues and address any service disruptions as they arise. Option C. Document the existing automated workflow thoroughly and train the operations team on its functionality, but continue its use in production to gather real-world feedback. Option D. Implement a phased rollout of the automated workflow, starting with a limited set of non-critical VPN services in a controlled environment, with robust monitoring and a defined rollback plan. Correct answer is A. Immediately halt the use of the automated provisioning workflow and revert to manual provisioning until a comprehensive validation and testing framework is established. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential deviation from established automation best practices within a Cisco service provider environment, specifically concerning the implementation of network automation for service provisioning. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and speed offered by automation with the stringent requirements for accuracy, compliance, and service integrity inherent in service provider operations. Missteps in this area can lead to service outages, customer dissatisfaction, and regulatory penalties. The correct approach involves a phased, validated, and auditable implementation of automation. This means starting with robust testing in a lab environment that mirrors production, followed by a controlled rollout with a subset of services or customers, with continuous monitoring and rollback capabilities. This methodology ensures that automation changes are thoroughly vetted before impacting the live network, minimizing risk. It aligns with industry best practices for change management and operational excellence, which are implicitly expected in regulated service provider environments. The emphasis on validation and auditing also supports compliance with any relevant service level agreements, SLAs, and operational standards. An incorrect approach would be to deploy automation scripts directly into the production environment without prior comprehensive testing. This bypasses critical validation steps, significantly increasing the risk of introducing errors that could disrupt services. Such an action would be professionally unacceptable, as it demonstrates a disregard for operational stability and customer impact, potentially violating implicit service provider obligations for reliable service delivery. Another incorrect approach is to implement automation without a clear rollback strategy. If an automated change causes an issue, the inability to quickly revert to a known good state can prolong service disruption, leading to severe customer impact and reputational damage. This failure to plan for contingencies is a significant professional oversight in a critical infrastructure environment. A third incorrect approach is to automate processes without proper documentation and knowledge transfer to the operational teams. While the automation might function, it creates a black box scenario where the operational staff lack understanding of how services are provisioned or how to troubleshoot issues related to the automation. This hinders effective incident response and long-term maintainability, undermining the overall goal of reliable service delivery. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment of any proposed automation. This includes identifying potential failure points, assessing the impact of those failures, and defining mitigation strategies. A structured change management process, incorporating thorough testing, staged rollouts, and clear rollback plans, is essential. Furthermore, fostering a culture of continuous learning and knowledge sharing around automation tools and processes ensures that operational teams are equipped to manage and support the automated environment effectively. Question 19. The analysis reveals that a service provider is implementing an automation solution to streamline the provisioning of new customer circuits. The automation script is designed to configure routing policies, CoS parameters, and VLAN assignments. However, the initial design review has highlighted a potential gap in ensuring that the automated configuration changes strictly adhere to the provider's established data privacy policies and network segmentation guidelines, which are mandated by relevant regulatory frameworks governing telecommunications services. Which of the following approaches best addresses this critical compliance and security requirement within the automation solution? Option A. Implement the automation script as is, assuming that existing network infrastructure security measures will inherently prevent any policy violations. Option B. Integrate automated validation checks within the provisioning script to verify that the proposed configuration changes align with defined data privacy rules and network segmentation policies before committing them to the network. Option C. Prioritize the speed of circuit provisioning by deferring the integration of data privacy and segmentation checks to a separate, later phase of the automation project. Option D. Rely on post-deployment manual audits to identify any deviations from data privacy policies or network segmentation guidelines introduced by the automation. The correct answer is B. Integrate automated validation checks within the provisioning script to verify that the proposed configuration changes align with defined data privacy rules and network segmentation policies before committing them to the network. Explanation. The analysis reveals a common challenge in automating service provider solutions, ensuring that the automation processes adhere to established network security policies and regulatory compliance requirements without introducing new vulnerabilities. The scenario is professionally challenging because the drive for efficiency and agility through automation must be balanced against the imperative to maintain a secure and compliant network infrastructure. Misinterpreting or overlooking specific security controls within automation scripts can lead to unintended consequences, such as exposing sensitive data, creating unauthorized access points, or violating data privacy regulations. Careful judgment is required to select automation strategies that are both effective and secure. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding and integration of existing security policies and compliance frameworks into the automation design and implementation. This proactive stance ensures that automation enhances, rather than compromises, the network's security posture and regulatory adherence. By embedding security checks and policy validations directly into the automation workflows, potential risks are mitigated at the source. This aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates a commitment to responsible automation deployment, which is crucial for maintaining customer trust and avoiding regulatory penalties. An incorrect approach that fails to integrate security policy validation into the automation workflow is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. Specifically, it could lead to violations of data protection laws, e.g., if sensitive customer data is inadvertently exposed due to an unvalidated configuration change, or breaches of service-level agreements, SLAs, if the automation causes network instability or downtime. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the responsibility to protect customer information and maintain service integrity. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on functional automation without considering the impact on network segmentation and access control is also professionally unsound. This can lead to security vulnerabilities by inadvertently blurring network boundaries or granting excessive privileges, potentially violating network security policies and industry best practices for secure network design. This oversight can result in compliance failures related to network access and data segregation. A third incorrect approach that relies on manual verification of automated changes after deployment, rather than incorporating automated validation within the workflow, is inefficient and risky. While manual checks can catch some issues, they are prone to human error and delay the detection of critical security or compliance deviations. This reactive approach increases the exposure window to potential threats and can lead to prolonged periods of noncompliance, which is a failure in professional due diligence and can have significant regulatory repercussions. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape and internal security policies. Before automating any network function, they must assess the potential security and compliance implications. The automation design should then explicitly incorporate checks and balances to ensure adherence to these requirements. This includes using secure coding practices, implementing robust testing methodologies that cover security and compliance aspects, and establishing clear rollback procedures. Continuous monitoring and auditing of automated processes are also essential to maintain ongoing compliance and security. Question 20. The assessment process reveals that a service provider is rapidly deploying new customer services using an automated provisioning system. During a review of recent deployments, it's discovered that the automation script, while efficient, has not been explicitly validated against the latest data handling and privacy regulations applicable to customer information processed by the network. This oversight could lead to noncompliance if certain customer data types are inadvertently exposed or mishandled by the new service configurations. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation and ensures future regulatory adherence? Option A. Rely on the existing security protocols of the network infrastructure to inherently protect customer data, assuming no specific regulatory checks are needed within the automation itself. Option B. Update the automation script to include a disclaimer stating that customers are responsible for understanding and adhering to data privacy regulations for their own data. Option C. Immediately halt all automated provisioning until a comprehensive manual audit of all past and future configurations against all relevant data privacy regulations is completed. Option D. Implement a post-deployment compliance verification step within the automation workflow that flags any configuration deviating from predefined regulatory compliance templates before the service is fully activated. The correct answer is C. Immediately halt all automated provisioning until a comprehensive manual audit of all past and future configurations against all relevant data privacy regulations is completed. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in service provider automation, ensuring that automated network provisioning and configuration changes comply with established regulatory frameworks. In the context of the 300-535 SPAUTO exam, which focuses on Cisco service provider solutions, adherence to regulatory compliance is paramount. This scenario is professionally challenging because the speed and scale of automation can inadvertently introduce noncompliance if not rigorously managed. The pressure to deploy services quickly can sometimes overshadow the need for thorough regulatory checks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it integrates compliance checks directly into the automation workflow. This proactive stance ensures that any automated change is validated against regulatory requirements before it is implemented in the live network. This aligns with the principle of compliance by design, which is a cornerstone of responsible automation in regulated industries. Specifically, for service providers, this often involves adhering to data privacy regulations, service-level agreements, SLAs, that may have regulatory implications, and network security standards mandated by governing bodies. Automating these checks reduces the risk of human error and ensures consistent application of compliance rules. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately checks regulatory requirements before deployment is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a direct violation of regulatory mandates, which can lead to significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. For instance, failing to ensure that customer data is handled in accordance with data protection laws e.g., GDPR if the jurisdiction were European, or similar U.S. state-level regulations if U.S.-based, during automated provisioning would be a severe ethical and regulatory breach. Another failure would be implementing configurations that inadvertently expose network vulnerabilities, contravening security standards that service providers are obligated to uphold. Such actions demonstrate a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the legal and ethical responsibilities inherent in operating a service provider network. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based approach. Before automating any network function, a thorough assessment of potential regulatory impacts must be conducted. This includes identifying all relevant regulations, understanding their specific requirements, and determining how the automation will interact with these requirements. Automation scripts and workflows should be designed with built-in validation steps that query compliance databases or execute predefined checks. Furthermore, a robust testing and auditing framework is essential, where automated changes are logged and periodic audits are performed to verify ongoing compliance. When in doubt, consulting with legal and compliance experts is a critical step to ensure that automation initiatives do not inadvertently create regulatory exposure.